The morning sun, a pale gold coin in a Vermont autumn sky, spilled through the lace curtains my grandmother had stitched by hand. It cast familiar, delicate patterns across the worn oak table, a surface that held the ghostly imprints of 47 years of breakfasts with Harold. 5 years since the earth had taken him back, and my hand still hovered over the second chipped blue mug every single morning. The ritual was a stubborn anchor in a sea of grief. At 70, I'd learned that grief doesn't vanish, it simply becomes part of the architecture of your soul, a silent tenant in the rooms of your heart. I was washing those 2 mugs, my knuckles aching in the warm, soapy water, when I first heard the sound. A low, insistent buzz. I thought it was a late-season bumblebee, confused and seeking refuge from the encroaching chill. We got them in the farmhouse sometimes, these drowsy, disoriented pilgrims. But the sound came again, mechanical, persistent, a jarring note in the symphony of my quiet morning. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing slightly in the empty house. I dried my hands on the faded floral apron I wore, a gift from Harold on our 40th anniversary. "Rachel? Did you forget something?" Silence. My daughter-in-law, Rachel, had left 20 minutes earlier after our weekly Tuesday visit. They were a ritual she maintained with the precision of a military campaign. Ostensibly, she came to check on me, the lonely widow. But over time, I'd sensed a different purpose, a sense of duty, perhaps, or a need to maintain the appearance of a perfect, caring family. Rachel was polished to a high gloss, a woman whose life was a meticulously curated collection of color-coordinated grocery lists, immaculate baseboards, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. The buzzing came a third time, pulling me from my thoughts. It emanated from the antique sideboard by the front door, a piece Harold's father had built. I walked over, my knees protesting the movement with a familiar creak. There, face up on the dark wood, was Rachel's sleek, modern phone, an alien object in my world of old things. And then I saw it. My breath caught, sharp and painful, in my throat. Harold's face smiled up at me from the screen. But it wasn't a Harold I recognized from our albums. This wasn't the man with the tired eyes and the gentle, weary smile of his later years. This Harold was vibrant, his smile broad and unguarded, his eyes crinkled with genuine laughter. He was wearing a vibrant purple shirt I had never seen, standing against a backdrop of pine trees and a body of water I didn't recognize. It was a Harold from a parallel life, a secret life. The image was attached to an incoming text message. The preview glowed beneath his photo. "Tuesday again. Same time. I'm counting down the minutes until I can hold you." The room tilted. I gripped the solid edge of the sideboard, the grain of the wood pressing into my palm. The words swam, refusing to form coherent meaning. Tuesday. Same time. Counting down the minutes. This wasn't an old message. The timestamp read 9:47 a.m. Just moments ago. Someone was texting Rachel right now. Someone using my dead husband's photograph. Someone who met with her on Tuesdays. A cold dread, colder than the Vermont frost, began to spread through my veins. This was more than a prank. This felt calculated, cruel. My fingers, trembling and clumsy, closed around the cool glass of the phone. I knew I was crossing a boundary. Privacy was a sacrament I had always respected. But that was my husband's face. My dead husband, looking more alive in death than he had in years. The lock screen demanded a passcode. And I knew it. I'd watched Rachel enter it a dozen times. 0815, my grandson Ethan's birthday. The phone unlocked with a soft click, a sound that felt like the cocking of a gun in the silent house. I navigated to the messages. The contact was saved simply as H. The message thread was a river of poison, flowing back months, years. I scrolled upward, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wear that purple dress I love. Thank you for last night. You make me feel alive again. Your husband suspects nothing. We're safe. Your husband. My son, Michael. The father of my grandson. The boy who had helped Harold rebuild the South Barn after the Great Storm of '05. I sank into the chair by the door, Harold's chair, a hand-carved oak rocker he'd spent 3 months perfecting for me. The phone felt like a live coal in my hands, burning with secrets I never wanted to know. I scrolled further back, into the darker, older layers of the affair. Same place as always. The farm is perfect. She never suspects. Make sure the old woman doesn't see us. She's sharper than she looks. The old woman. Me. They had been meeting here. In my home. Under my nose, while I served them lemonade and asked about their week. Then I found it. A message that stopped time. I still have some of his clothes at the cabin. Should I get rid of them or do you want to keep them as souvenirs? His clothes. Harold's clothes. Rachel's reply, dated just 3 months after the funeral, was a blade to my heart. Keep them. I like sleeping in his shirts. They smell like him. Like us. Like those afternoons when Maggie thought he was at his brother's place. The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering against the wide plank floor. The sound echoed in the silence. No. This was impossible. Obscene. A violation that reached into the past and poisoned every memory I held dear. Harold and Rachel. The betrayal was a physical sickness, a churning in my gut. The front doorbell rang, a cheerful, mundane sound that was horribly out of place. Rachel. She'd returned for her phone. I had 30 seconds. 30 seconds to decide the course of the rest of my life. Confront her now, with nothing but raw, shattered emotion? Or, stay silent. Learn. Understand the full, horrifying scope of this betrayal before I showed my hand. The doorbell rang again, impatient. On the screen, a new message from H appeared. I love you. See you tonight. Same cabin. I'll bring wine. The cabin. More lies. More secrets. A coldness settled over me, a calm that was far more frightening than my earlier panic. The grief-stricken widow was gone. In her place sat someone else, someone I didn't yet know. Coming. I called out, my voice surprisingly steady. I slipped the phone into my apron pocket, the weight of it a secret against my hip. I grabbed a dish towel, wiped my hands with a theatrical flourish, and opened the door with a smile I did not feel. Rachel, dear. Did you forget something? She stood on my porch, perfectly composed. But for the first time I saw past the polish. I saw the calculation in her eyes, the slight tension around her mouth. The look of someone with everything to lose. My phone, she said, her smile brittle. I'm so scattered today. Is it here? I haven't seen it, I lied smoothly, the falsehood coming easier than I expected. But come in, help me look. As she stepped past me, her expensive perfume, the same scent I'd sometimes caught on Harold's collar, trailed in her wake, a fragrant ghost of their betrayal. I closed the door, the click of the latch sounding like the first move in a very dangerous game. Let's check the kitchen, I said pleasantly. I'm sure it will turn up. But the phone, warm and secret in my pocket, held the power to tear my family apart. And I intended to use it. The search Rachel conducted in my kitchen was not the frantic patting of pockets and glancing around of someone who'd simply misplaced an object. It was a systematic, thorough reconnaissance. She opened drawers that hadn't held a phone in 50 years, peered behind the cookie jar, even lifted the lid of the ceramic flour bin. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, scanned every surface. She wasn't just looking for a phone, she was looking for a sign that I had found it. "That's so strange," she said, straightening up and brushing a non-existent piece of lint from her immaculate trousers. "I could have sworn I left it on the sideboard." "Maybe you took it with you and it's in your car," I suggested, my voice a masterpiece of grandmotherly concern. I poured 2 cups of tea I didn't want, my hand steady as I placed the chipped blue mug, Harold's mug, in front of her. "Maybe," she murmured, but her gaze lingered on my apron pocket for a fraction of a second too long. A cold certainty settled in my stomach. She knows. Or at least, she suspects. "Well, I should get going," she announced abruptly. "Michael wants me home before lunch. We have that parent-teacher conference for Ethan this afternoon." "Of course, dear. I'll call you if it turns up." I watched from the window as her silver SUV crunched down the gravel driveway and disappeared behind the curtain of ancient sugar maples. Only when the silence of the house was absolute again did I allow the mask to slip. I sank into Harold's chair, the worn wood groaning in sympathy, and pulled the phone from my pocket. The message thread was a chronological descent into hell. I started from the beginning, 4 years ago. The early messages were cautious, almost clinical. H. The Farmhouse, Tuesday 2 p.m. She has her garden club. R. Understood. The barn loft? H. Yes. I'll bring the blanket. They spoke of my schedule, my habits, with the detached precision of military strategists. I was she, the obstacle to be navigated. The old woman. The betrayal was cold, premeditated. Then, the tone shifted. The messages became intimate, laced with a passion Harold had never shown me in our later years. H. You make me feel like a man again, not just a dying old farmer. R. You're not dying. You're the strongest man I know. H. Maggie looks at me like I'm a piece of furniture. You look at me like I'm a king. That one was a physical blow. Had I? In the weary, comfortable cadence of a long marriage, had my glances become routine, my touch perfunctory? I searched my memory, sifting through the final years. There had been fatigue, yes, the bone-deep weariness of caring for a man whose body was failing, of managing a farm that was slowly becoming too much. But contempt? Never. I had loved him. I had fought for him. The accusation was a lie, but it was a lie he had chosen to believe. I scrolled further, my vision blurring with unshed tears. I found the first mention of the cabin, a place Harold had told me he'd sold years ago to pay for new roofing. He'd spun a tale about his uncle's old hunting lodge being more trouble than it was worth. Another lie, laid atop a foundation of lies. Then, a photo. It was a selfie, taken by Rachel. Harold was in the background, shirtless, splitting wood. The date stamp, July 2019. 5 months before his fatal heart attack. He looked strong, vital. The memory of him in those months was of a man growing weaker, complaining of chest pains, spending more time in his armchair. Had it been an act? Or had the affair given him a desperate, fleeting energy? A new message from H interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Did you forget your phone? Michael just called my cell asking if I'd seen you. I told him you were probably grocery shopping. Get your phone and call him back before he gets suspicious. The casual manipulation was breathtaking. H was not just Rachel's lover, he was her co-conspirator, actively helping her maintain the facade for my son. My own phone rang, startling me. Michael's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered, forcing a lightness into my voice that felt like lifting a boulder. "Mom, have you seen Rachel? She's not answering her phone, and her teacher's conference is in an hour." "Because her phone is in my pocket. She was here this morning, but she left hours ago." "Maybe her battery died." "Maybe." He sounded stressed, distracted. "Look, I need to talk to you about something. Can I come by tonight?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "Of course. Is everything all right?" A long, heavy pause. "We'll talk later. Love you, Mom." He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the two phones in my hands, one buzzing with secrets, the other now silent. Michael wanted to talk. Did he know? Did he suspect something? I couldn't confront Rachel yet. Not without more. I needed evidence, something concrete that couldn't be explained away as the paranoid fantasy of a grieving old woman. I thought of Sandra Matthews, a widow down the road. Her daughter-in-law had been systematically stealing from her for years. When Sandra finally spoke up, the family had her declared incompetent and packed her off to a care facility. She died there 6 months later, still insisting she'd been robbed. I would not share her fate. I spent the afternoon building my arsenal. First, I needed to secure the evidence. I connected Rachel's phone to my laptop, a skill my tech-savvy grandson Ethan had patiently taught me during the long pandemic lockdowns. I backed up everything, the entire message history, the photos, the contact information 4H, onto a thumb drive. I then hid the drive inside a hollowed-out volume on my shelf, Blackstone's Commentaries, a dense legal textbook of Harold's that no one would ever open. Then, I turned my attention to the central mystery: who was H? Harold was dead. So who was sending these messages now, using his photo, continuing his affair? I combed through the messages again, looking for clues. The language was male. He knew intimate details about Harold and Rachel's relationship. The messages from this new age had started just 2 months after Harold's funeral, as if someone had been waiting in the wings. H, I can give you everything he couldn't. I'm younger, stronger, and I won't die on you. The cruelty of it made me nauseous. But it also told me something vital: H had known Harold was sick. He'd known about his heart condition. I made a mental list of possibilities: Harold's few remaining friends from the farm co-op, his business associates from his days as a part-time auctioneer. Then I found it. A message from Harold to Rachel, dated 3 years ago. Harold, Tom keeps asking questions about where I go on Tuesdays. I think he's following me. We need to be more careful. Tom, Thomas Sullivan. Harold's nephew, George's boy. My nephew by marriage. Tom was 38, a handsome, affable man with a wife and 2 young children of his own. He lived in Burlington and had been a frequent visitor, especially after his father George, Harold's brother, had passed 2 years ago. Tom had handled George's estate, sorting through all the old papers. Had he found evidence of the affair then? Or had he known all along? The pieces clicked into a horrifying new picture. Tom had access. He had motive, the life insurance policy the police had mentioned. He had opportunity. And he had the cruel audacity to step into his dead uncle's shoes. The front door opened without a knock. Only Michael had a key. I barely had time to shove Rachel's phone under the sofa cushion before my son appeared in the doorway. He looked terrible. Pale, unshaven, his shirt wrinkled as if he'd slept in it. His eyes, usually so bright and full of life, were shadowed with a pain I recognized instantly. Michael? What's wrong? He collapsed into the chair opposite me, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders shook with a silent sob. When he looked up, his eyes were red-rimmed. Mom, he whispered, his voice hoarse. I think Rachel's having an affair. The irony was a knife twist. I kept my face a careful, neutral mask. What makes you think that, sweetheart? She's been distant. 4 months. Maybe years. She disappears on Tuesdays, says she's at yoga or the grocery store. But I checked our credit card statements. No charges at the gym on Tuesdays. No grocery store receipts. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I being paranoid? No, I said quietly, the word hanging in the air between us. You're not paranoid. He stared at me, the hope in his eyes warring with a dawning dread. You know something. I took a deep breath, the point of no return looming. I found her phone, I admitted, retrieving it from its hiding place. She left it here this morning. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. I watched the emotions play across his face, hope that I was mistaken, fear that I was right, and finally, a devastating comprehension as I handed him the device. It's bad, isn't it? He whispered. The passcode is Ethan's birthday. While he read, I went to the kitchen and made tea, a pointless, automatic gesture. Neither of us would drink it. From the living room, I heard his sharp intake of breath, a choked curse, a sound that might have been a sob strangled in his throat. When I returned, he was white-faced, his hands shaking so violently the phone threatened to slip from his grasp. Dad, he rasped, the word thick with horror. She was sleeping with Dad. My father and my wife. He looked at me, his eyes begging me to tell him it was a nightmare. How long? For years, I said, my voice hollow. From what I can tell. Maybe longer. And after he died. He scrolled, his jaw tightening. Who's this? Who's H now? I think it's Tom. Tom? His face twisted with a rage I had never seen in my gentle son. My cousin? That son of a, I'll kill him. I'll kill both of them. No. My voice was sharp, commanding, the voice of a mother who would not let her child ruin his life. You will not. We need to think this through. Think it through? He shot to his feet, pacing the worn rug. Mom, they destroyed our family. Dad betrayed you, betrayed me. Rachel has been lying to my face for years. And Tom. He shook his head, a muscle twitching in his jaw. I want a divorce. I want them exposed. I want everyone to know what they did. And then what? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Rachel gets half of everything in the divorce. She could get primary custody of Ethan if she paints you as unstable. Tom denies everything. There's no proof linking him directly to H, it's just a guess. You lose your son, your money, and your dignity, while they move on with their lives. He stopped pacing, his chest heaving. So what do you suggest? We investigate further, I said, leaning forward, my eyes locked on his. We gather evidence that can't be disputed. We figure out what they want and why they're doing this. I paused, letting the words sink in. And then we destroy them. Carefully. Methodically. In a way they never see coming. Michael looked at me, really looked at me, as if seeing a stranger. I didn't know you could be this cold. Neither did I admitted. But they hurt my son. They hurt me. And I won't let them get away with it. A firm knock at the door interrupted us. We both froze. Mrs. Sullivan? A woman's voice, unfamiliar and official. I'm Detective Morrison with the Vermont State Police. I need to speak with you about your husband's death. Michael and I exchanged a single, horrified glance. The police. Now. Just a moment. I called out, my mind racing. I grabbed Rachel's phone and shoved it into Michael's hands. "Hide this. Don't let anyone see it." He nodded and disappeared into the back hallway. I smoothed my apron, took a steadying breath, and opened the door. A woman in her late 40s stood on my porch, her badge held up, her expression professionally neutral. "I'm sorry to bother you, Mrs. Sullivan. I'm reopening the investigation into your husband's death. There have been some new allegations that require looking into." "Allegations?" My voice stayed steady through sheer force of will. "My husband died of a heart attack 5 years ago." "Yes, ma'am. But we've received information suggesting his death might not have been from natural causes." She pulled out a small notebook. "Can you tell me who had access to your husband's medication in the weeks before he died?" The world tilted on its axis. Murder. She was suggesting Harold had been murdered. And in that instant, the affair, the betrayal, the secret messages, all of it took on a darker, more sinister dimension. "I think," I said carefully, "that I should call my lawyer." Detective Morrison smiled, a thin, humorless gesture. "That's certainly your right, Mrs. Sullivan. But I should tell you, the person who filed the complaint specifically named you as a suspect." Detective Morrison's revelation hung in the air. Harold's death was now a murder investigation, and I was the prime suspect. The anonymous tip claimed I had a financial motive, a $500,000 life insurance policy I knew nothing about. As Morrison questioned us, a chilling memory surfaced. In his final months, Rachel, a former nurse, had taken over managing Harold's medications. She'd claimed I was becoming forgetful, a lie that isolated him and made him dependent on her. The night he died, he'd remarked that his pills looked different. Rachel had calmly explained it was a different manufacturer. I had trusted her. After the detective left, Michael was ready to confront Rachel immediately. I stopped him. If she was setting me up for murder, confrontation would only make her more dangerous. We needed irrefutable proof. That night, we used GPS coordinates from Rachel's phone to find the cabin by Lake Champlain. Hidden outside, we watched through a window as Rachel and Tom celebrated. Their conversation was a confession. They had poisoned Harold with digoxin, slowly building it up in his system until a final dose at dinner triggered a fatal heart attack. The anonymous tip against me was their backup plan to ensure the insurance payout. Tom, as the executor of Harold's will, had created a fraudulent trust to divert the $500,000 to themselves. We had heard everything. But the recording was illegal. We needed a legal confession. "We make them confess," I told a shaken Michael. "We'll gather everyone for a formal reading of your father's will. It's the perfect stage to force their hand." The trap was set. All we had to do was spring it. When your enemies believe they have you cornered, that is the moment to use their arrogance against them. The most effective trap is the one they walk into willingly, convinced of their own victory. The world had shrunk to the four walls of Michael's home office, a space now choked with the paper ghosts of our former lives. Bank statements, tax returns, and medical bills formed a chaotic sea across his desk, each document a potential piece of the puzzle that was Harold's murder. The single, damning payment to Granite State Insurance was our North Star, a financial scar left by Rachel's betrayal. "Look at this," Michael said, his voice sandpaper rough from fatigue and rage. He turned his laptop screen toward me. It was the life insurance policy application, a document I was seeing for the first time. There was my name, Margaret Sullivan, listed as the beneficiary. And at the bottom, Harold's signature. But it was wrong. I knew the hurried, confident scrawl of the man who'd signed marriage licenses and farm deeds for nearly 5 decades. This was a careful, uniform imitation. A forgery. She forged it, I said, the words tasting of ash. We'd need an expert to prove that, Michael countered, a spark of hope in his exhausted eyes. That takes time we don't have. Once Morrison built her case, he didn't need to finish. We both knew an arrest warrant for me was a terrifyingly real possibility. The system moved slowly until it decided you were its target, then it could move with terrifying speed. It was then that my phone, set to silent, buzzed against the oak desk like an angry hornet. An unknown number. The message was brief and brutal. Drop the investigation or your grandson pays the price. Ice flooded my veins. Michael. Where is Ethan right now? At his other grandmother's. Rachel took him there yesterday. Why? He saw the phone in my hand, saw the blood drain from my face. He snatched his own phone, his call to his mother-in-law a frantic, hushed torrent of fear and instruction. When he hung up, he was trembling. He's fine. Asleep. She won't let him out of her sight. Another text, a follow-up punch to ensure we were reeling. We know what you found at the cabin. Destroy the recording and forget everything or the boy has an accident. You have until tomorrow night. They had seen us. Or they had guessed. We had profoundly underestimated their ruthlessness. This was no longer just about covering up a crime, it was about domination. That's it, Michael declared, his voice shaking with a volatile mix of fear and fury. I'm calling Morrison. We tell them everything. The threats, the murder, all of it. And then what? I interrupted, my voice low and urgent. They take Ethan into protective custody while a slow-moving investigation grinds on? They question Rachel, who will paint you as an unstable, vengeful husband. Michael, think. She is his mother. The courts, the system, they will give her every benefit of the doubt. We would be handing him to her while we fight a legal battle we might lose. The horrific truth of that silenced him. The law was a blunt instrument, and Rachel was a sharp needle. She could easily slip through its grasp, taking my grandson with her. We need leverage, I said, the idea coiling in my mind like smoke. Not a hidden recording they can get thrown out. We need something that forces their hand. Something that makes them act, and in doing so, confesses everything. The insurance money, Michael said, latching onto the thread. Tom said the money would go to the estate, but the policy lists you. So where is it? His fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing the insurance company's portal using the policy number. He guessed the password on the third try, Ethan's name and birthday. Rachel's arrogance was a constant, a flaw we could exploit. The policy was active, premiums dutifully paid from our joint account. But the beneficiary was no longer me. It had been changed to the Harold Sullivan Memorial Trust. The sole trustee was Thomas Sullivan. That bastard, Michael breathed, pulling up the public trust filing from the county clerk. He controls it all. He can do whatever he wants with the money. The document was a masterpiece of fraud. It authorized Tom to take a trustee fee of 40%. Rachel was listed as a special consultant for another 40%. The remaining 20% was vaguely designated for Harold's heirs, a crumb thrown to Michael and me to avoid suspicion. They were going to give us a consolation prize from my own husband's death benefit, I said, the coldness in my voice now a permanent resident. I'm calling him, Michael snarled, reaching for his phone. I'm going to. No, I said, my hand on his arm. Let them think their threat worked. Let them think we are scared, cornered, and defeated. A dangerous, audacious plan was taking full form. We don't confront them. We blackmail them. Michael stared at me as if I'd spoken in tongues. An hour later, we were in a booth at a 24-hour diner 20 miles away, using their public Wi-Fi. From an anonymous email account, I sent a message to Tom's personal address. I know about the digoxin. I know about the cabin. I know about the insurance fraud. You have 24 hours to transfer $250,000 to the account below, or I go to the police with evidence that Rachel murdered Harold. She goes to prison. You go free. Your choice. A friend. I included the number for an anonymous cryptocurrency wallet Michael had set up. You're blackmailing a murderer? Michael whispered, incredulous. I'm forcing him to choose between his money and his accomplice, I clarified, my gaze steady. If he pays, we have proof he knows about the murder. If he doesn't, he'll panic and do something stupid with Rachel. Either way, they make a fatal mistake. And if he goes to the police? He won't, I said, a grim smile touching my lips. Walking into a police station and admitting he knows about a murder, a cover-up, and a $500,000 fraud would be suicide. We are hurting them, Michael. Forcing them into a corner of our choosing. The response came not by email, but as a call to my personal phone. Tom's voice was calm, but I could hear the razor's edge of tension beneath it. Maggie. We need to talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow, noon at the cabin. Come alone or Michael's son disappears. I met Michael's eyes across the Formica table. The trap was set. And we were both stepping into it. I'll be there, I told Tom, my voice devoid of emotion. Good. And Maggie, don't be stupid. You're an old woman. You can't win this. The line went dead. Michael was already shaking his head, a hard, frantic no. You are not going there alone. They've already killed one person. Which is exactly why you cannot come, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. If this goes wrong, you are Ethan's only protection. Your job is to stay with him. Keep him safe. I then laid out the rest of my plan. I would wear a wire, legally, announcing I was recording to secure two-party consent. And I would go with a bargaining chip, a false, handwritten confession to Harold's murder. You'd confess to murder? Michael asked, aghast. I'll tell Tom I did it out of jealous rage. In exchange, I want the insurance money returned and Rachel to grant you a quiet divorce. It gives him everything he wants, me, the fall guy, out of the way. The moment he agrees on tape, acknowledging the murder and the fraud, we have him. I recant, we present the recording, and it's over. It's too risky. He'll never believe you. He will, I said, my voice soft but ironclad, because he believes what he just said. He thinks I'm just a stupid old woman. He has underestimated me at every turn. That is not my weakness, Michael. It is my greatest weapon. And tomorrow, I intend to use it. The cabin felt like a cage. Tom's smug confidence and Rachel's cold triumph filled the small space. My wire was useless, jammed. They knew our every move. Write the confession, Tom ordered, sliding a notepad toward me. You killed Harold in a jealous rage. Then you write a suicide note. Rachel held my bottle of sleeping pills. We got these yesterday. It will be clean. I picked up the pen, but I didn't write their lies. I wrote my truth, hiding the page from their view. I, Maggie Sullivan, am being held at gunpoint by Thomas and Rachel Sullivan. They have confessed to murdering my husband. The digoxin, I said, stalling. Where did you get it? Canada, Rachel said proudly. Untraceable. I wrote it down. And the insurance fraud? My idea, Tom bragged. Simple. I kept them talking, documenting their entire confession on paper. It was my only evidence now. Finally, I played my last card. I mailed a letter to Harold's lawyer. A full account. To be opened if anything happens to me. It was a bluff, but Rachel's eyes flickered with doubt. She lunged for the gun on the table. I was faster. I slammed my hand on the table's edge, flipping it. The gun and pills clattered to the floor. Chaos erupted. Rachel scrambled for the weapon. Tom rushed me. I spun, driving my elbow into his stomach. He grunted, doubling over. I reached the door, but it was locked. Rachel found the gun, aiming it with shaking hands. Don't move. The window behind her exploded. Michael crashed through the glass, tackling her. The gun fired into the ceiling. He wrestled it from her grasp. Get outside, Mom. Through the broken window, I saw Detective Morrison and officers rushing toward us. The trap had finally sprung shut on them. They were handcuffed, their protests silenced. My written testimony was safe. The war was over. 3 months later, peace had returned to the farmhouse. Rachel and Tom, faced with overwhelming evidence, took plea deals. She got 25 years to life for murder and fraud. He got 15 for his part. The insurance money was returned to me. It felt like blood money. I put most in a trust for Ethan's future. The rest would keep the farm secure. One evening, Michael looked troubled. Rachel's lawyer called. She wants to see Ethan. What does Ethan want? I asked. He never wants to see her again. Michael sighed. But what if he resents me for it? You protect him now, I said firmly. He needs safety and truth. Not a connection to the woman who destroyed his family. He nodded, the weight of his decision clear. Later, I finally opened a box of Harold's old things. Beneath his wallet was a sealed letter for me. My dearest Maggie, it began. I'm a coward. I've done terrible things. You deserved better. You were never the problem. I was. You are remarkable, Maggie. Stronger than I ever was. I hope you find happiness. Tears came, not for the man I lost, but for the tragic waste. It was the closure I needed. I had a farm to run, a grandson to love, a son to support. I had a life to rebuild on a foundation of truth. I was Maggie Sullivan, 70 years old. I had survived betrayal, a murder plot, and a frame job. I had brought down killers with my wits and will. They had underestimated the quiet widow. And they had lost everything because of it.